Hello, everyone. My name is Victor. I am the Occult Technician, and this is Mind War. Season 2, Episode 13.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar.
Purchase your tracks.
It's just a
today.
motherfucking hood thing. Blowing thrash, chasing rats, dripping wood grain. Jealous got me strapped, I gotta maintain. Selling crack and moving dog ain't the same thing. Bitch, I'm thuggin', so I gang bang. Shit, I'm just lucky Michigan ain't got the chain gang. Ain't no tucking there shit, I let my chain hang. Nigga touch it and I'm bustin', let his brains hang.
Purchase your tracks
Another
today.
day, another couple dollars. Another nigga gon' get smoked, them niggas want them problems. Even if we kickin' in the dough, bitch, ain't no revolvers. Spending this motherfucking money like ain't no tomorrow.
Purchase your
I
tracks
live the
today.
life of a street nigga. Getting that dough, my little hoe don't want no cheap nigga. Niggas put salt all in the game, think it's sweet nigga. We catch your ass, put that on me, you dead meat. Another day, another dollar. Pussy niggas don't want no problems. Come through anywhere with
That was Max Hilly with his hit song, Another Day. Welcome back to the Mind War podcast, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to get into, so let's get started. Folks, this is the season finale of Mind War, Season 2. Again, I appreciate all of you being here. I think this was a great season. We had a lot of big changes that happened this year here in the Mind War studios, right? We painted the wall black. We put some new lighting in. We made some camera adjustments. We got the new mic, some new software. There were some really big upgrades to the Mind War studios, and we look forward to a lot of new and exciting things coming up in the future of the Mind War podcast. So again, this season, we worked through the book titled First Earth Battalion by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Chinon. Again, this was a book that was featured in the hit movie The Men Who Stare at Goats. Again, if you haven't watched that movie, that's part of the Mind War extra credit. You might want to check that out before we move into the next season. So in Season 2 here of the Mind War, again, besides the changes to the studio, we made some changes to programming. And we really looked into some very controversial subjects, right? We really looked into the news today and just dove deep into some things that people normally aren't talking about. I really enjoyed doing that. I think that was a lot of fun. I got a lot of great feedback from that. And then, of course, we had some major celebrity endorsements. We had Mike from Red Bar Radio endorse the Mind War podcast. That was huge. That was so much fun. And then, you know, we took a look at Bert and his wife possibly doing black magic. That was a fun video. And the same with Tom and his fans. We did our little psyop over there. That was a lot of fun. That thing still is running like crazy. We're still getting a lot of traction with that video, so that's been great. We also addressed some of the dangers in my hometown here in Saginaw, Michigan, the third most dangerous city in America. That video was banned by TikTok, so that was really interesting, being banned by my first social media. Again, my account is still up. It was just that video itself that was banned, and then that kind of led to them not approving my TikTok shop. I'll get back there. I'm kind of just letting things cool out over on TikTok for a little bit, but we'll get back to it soon enough. Then we talked about the things in my personal life where, again, when I was working as a security guard at the local community center, a guy came in and pulled a knife on me. threatened my life. So there were some big changes there. There's some exciting news, and those of you who stick around for the end of the episode, I'll talk a little bit more about the personal side of what happened there. But for now, I want to make a big announcement for what is going to happen in Mind War Season 3, folks. Now, you've heard me talk a lot about this in Season 1 and Season 2, but Season 3, we are going to dedicate to the Gateway Experience tapes. That's right, folks. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to refocus in Season 3 on the curriculum, okay? Because really, I want the main episodes of the Mind War podcast to be something that people can look back to in the future. They can look back at these video series and see it almost more as a curriculum, somewhere that they can go to learn. Because again, we are working through books, right? Books like Mind War, First Earth Battalion. And as part of the Gateway Experience tapes, exploration, the expose, we're going to be working through Dr. Monroe's books, right? We're going to be actually reading through what he talks about in the tapes, and we're going to be looking at some of the other documents that are associated with the Gateway Experience tapes. I think some of you know what I'm talking about there. So we have a lot to cover there. Look out in the next few weeks. Maybe I'll put out a study guide, so materials and things that you might need to get ready for Season 3, because I really hope that Season 3 can be interactive. There's some things I'm planning, and again, there's still a lot of work to do before Season 3 starts that I want to get ready and prepare for, and some of that is going to be things that you can do on your side also. So those videos, like we talked about before, dealing with the controversial subjects, reaching out to celebrities and things like that, doing the little psyops here and there. I think those type of videos from now on, I'm going to separate them from the main episodes of the Mind War podcast, and those will be more extracurricular, right? So those are going to be separate videos. You can think of them as like special features, or maybe I'll do kind of like mini series type things if that is what it's called for. Because again, I really want the main episodes of the Mind War podcast to focus on what we're studying and what we're working on, and not really, having some of these other topics take away from that, right? But trust me, we'll keep doing those fun videos. Again, a lot of love for those, a lot of likes on those videos, a lot of great comments. I appreciate all of you out there reaching out. And I really look forward to Season 3. And the plan right now is this is being recorded in early March. And I think that Mind War Season 3, we're actually going to start doing the seasons with the seasons, right? So my plan right now is that for the first episode of Mind War Season 3 will come out on the first Sunday of April. I'm not sure what day that is yet, but just be on the lookout for that. So there may be a few weekends where I don't post anything, or again, maybe I just do study guides or some other videos talking about other subjects, right, that might not be part of the main Mind War podcast episodes. But don't worry, folks, I will be back. But in that meantime, again, I'm going to do a lot of preparations for Season 3 and really get ready for that. So again, Season 3, the Gateway Experience, that's going to be a lot of fun, and it may take multiple seasons to cover. So we'll see how that goes. But really, folks, I just want to again, thank you so much for being here for Season 2, covering the First Earth Battalion. This has been a lot of fun, a lot of big changes. I appreciate all of you being here. And so before we get back to the First Earth Battalion, we're going to be working on the final chapter, Chapter 6. I think we can get through it today. Please hang around for just a moment for a word from our sponsor. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Welcome back, folks. All right, let's get into the 6th and final chapter of the First Earth Battalion, Operations Manual by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Channon. This chapter is titled Spirit Work. The warrior monk is empowered by spirit. The evolutionary actor can see the designing intelligence of God or spirit in all belief systems and honors the spirit in all living creatures. Here are some ideas on how spirit is unfolding to those on the frontier. You, however, must release yourself to the force inside you, for no other descriptions matter in the end. The Earth Battalion honors all paths to enlightenment. So, again, we're not pushing any religion here at the Mind War. That's not what this is about. Any of my personal spiritual practices, again, we'll discuss those a lot more in future episodes. And again, I'm not pushing those on you. I'm not saying that that's what you have to believe. But it's interesting here, he talks about a designing intelligence of God or a spirit, right, in all belief systems. And I think that's important for those of you out there who say you believe in a God, a one universal God, understanding that if that's true, then this God, their fingerprints are on everything, in every system, good and bad, those that you agree with and disagree with. And when you take that mindset, when you start thinking that way, it really is going to start softening your view on others. And that's important, right? We want to not look so harshly at others. Again, even just using that word others is that kind of separation terminology. And we're trying to get away from that. We don't want to do that here in the Mind War. That's not what we're looking at. That's what the old paradigm is. That's what the mainstream does. We're not trying to divide here in the Mind War podcast. We're trying to work together, creating our own First Earth Battalion, our little team, and whatever that means. Again, looking towards that Aristos, because we are taking these tactics that we learn, we're applying them to our personal lives. We are finding the best possible scenario for our current situation. And as we do that, as we start to grow, as we start to heal as individuals, we're going to reach out to others, friends, family, making new friends, making new family, and working together locally at whatever your little goal and your little purpose is. Next page. The angels are here. If, in fact, we want to have a heaven on earth, then a class of angels should come forth to begin the work. Actually, that class of angels is surfacing now everywhere on the planet. They are truly loving and competent humans, because they are open to all the best that have gone before. Open your heart. The universe will feed you. So that's pretty fun, folks. You know, the Mind War slogan at the end, I say harden your hearts and open your minds. The author here is saying open your heart. Okay. If that's where you are at in life, if that's what is important to you, if you want to be more loving and accepting, like we're talking about, opening your heart a little bit. Again, when you are working with other individuals and groups in your local community, you do want to have an open heart. You want to have empathy for them, okay? You want to understand them emotionally and what level that they're on. Because again, one of the main things that we're talking about, not just here on the Mind War podcast, but also on the Mind War Patreon, for those of you that are going to miss me over the next few weeks as I prepare for season 3, this is a great time to join the Mind War Patreon, where we're working from the book, The 48 Laws of Power. And again, one of the things that we're learning over there is how important it is to put yourself in other people's shoes, okay? Not necessarily because you want to become them or save them or anything, but because you want to understand them. And when you understand people, you can manipulate them. And again, we've talked about this word manipulation before multiple times. It's not always a bad word, okay? Of course, we think of people who manipulate in a negative way. That seems to be the majority of manipulation that we hear about now. But if we can manipulate those around us to be healthier, happier, live a better, more fulfilling life, sounds like a good type of manipulation to me. The picture that is associated with the page, the angels are here. This is kind of fun. Again, it's that pyramid, like the symbolism we see here. That's why I used the pyramid or triangle shape. I know how powerful that is in history. It has the sharp edges, the straight lines, right? It's very forceful. It makes you focus directly on it. And that is in contrast to the art that you see behind me. This symbol here that, again, in future seasons, we'll talk more about the origin of that symbol, but it's circular. All the lines are very fluid because it is a representation of water and a reflection in that water. So again, that symbolism is very important. And it's nice to know here that the author says that there are already these angels here. Okay, we're already here, right? You are one, I am one, we are one. People, when they look at the other aspects of my art, when they hear the other things that we're doing here in the Mind War podcast, they're going to say, how dare they call themselves angels? Well, that's exactly what we are. Because those of you that are truly following along here, those of you who are actually listening to what I'm saying, it's about peace. It's about love. It's about coming together. It's about healing the mind, body, and spirit. That is the focus. That is the goal. Okay. And some of the other things that I have to do here on the Mind War podcast are, number one, so I continue to have fun with it. Again, this is one of the favorite things that I do in my life, is coming down here and making this podcast for all of you and myself. And really to test some of the things that we've learned. That's why we reach out to, again, the celebrities and and work on these controversial subjects like this, because again, we're trying to test out some of the tactics that we're learning here on the Mind War podcast. Next page. Dumping the word disease. Language can determine where you spend your life. Balance the language in your life, and you will balance your life, okay? So we have an interesting picture here. Again, there's a circle, and then there is a lot of jagged lines that almost look like gems or something like that. It says the structure, and then there's an arrow pointing towards the spirit, and you have numbers, words, pictures, visions, rhythm, and music, all different ways of communication, all different types of languages. Language is very important, especially, most importantly, the language that you use to speak to yourself, okay? We're going to separate the language that you use to speak with others and how they talk to you. That is all secondary. That is all so far on the back burner, it almost doesn't matter. What I want to talk about today is how you talk to yourself. That voice in your head, whether it is just internal, or if you're out there sometimes wandering around your house like your buddy Victor does, talking out loud to himself, right? I have to prepare for the podcast, of course. The language that you use when you talk to yourself. Are you harsh with yourself? Are you negative? Are you constantly belittling and berating yourself? That is not acceptable here in the Mind War. That is not how we treat ourselves here in the Mind War. That is no way to heal. That is no way to grow by constantly berating yourself. If that is something that is happening in your life, if you find yourself beating yourself up with your language, let me know. I will yell and swear and scream at you for a while and, remind you that that's not who it truly is. And we can beat back that that little devil, or maybe the angel, whichever one is talking bad to you, through you, we can get them to quiet down. And we want to use more positive language towards ourselves. And again, that's part of that, manifestation. The way we talk about, instead of having a negative thought process, oh, my life is this, it's bad, it's whatever, focusing on those small things. We've talked about this before as we're changing our scenarios in order to change our situation. Sometimes we have to just focus on the small wins that occur. And just because we haven't accomplished everything we've wanted right this moment, that doesn't mean we just start trashing ourselves. No, we're going to just pick out those few small things and we're going to build day by day. The podcast that you're seeing today, the art that you see on my Instagram, it has taken me well over 2 years to get to this part. To get to this episode today has taken me over 2 years, okay? And my goal is to just continue to improve, to make better podcasts, to make more beautiful art, whatever it is, right? So again, think about the language that you use to talk to yourself. Write it down sometimes. If you find yourself, again, we've talked about this in other episodes where you're having reoccurring negative thoughts, write that negative thought down for a minute, right? Take the second and write it down and really look at it and say, I'm not talking to myself this way anymore. I'm going to restructure that sentence and how you want to talk to yourself in a positive way. And if you have trouble writing, right? If you are maybe not a very creative writer, take that negative thought, put it into AI and tell it to give you a positive version of the sentence and use that maybe as your mantra. Next page. Listen to the music. If you find life cold and hard, maybe you should try the other types of languages, I guess. So we have spirit and structure. Again, you have music, flags, intuition, and space, pictures, time, words, logic, and number. Okay, so things like music are more spiritual. Again, we'll talk more about this in future episodes, especially when we get into not just the gateway experience, but then when we move towards more spiritual topics, right? Music, for me, plays a huge part in that process, okay? I use music to actually get my emotions up and running. I know many of you do too. It sounds very simple, right? But when you do that with a very focused purpose, right? Instead of just hearing a song come on the radio randomly that is very emotional to you, and you're off doing something and all of a sudden you get hit with this big sweeping feeling of all these emotions come through because of the song, we're going to take that and we focus it into our spiritual practice, into our spiritual work. It's amazing. I often, when I feel just, kind of internally frustrated, you just feel the gears kind of grinding. You feel like, your head is kind of stuffed up, right? I put these headphones on. I find one of these songs that I know is going to make me feel emotional. I go in, usually upstairs with my art, and I do some of my stretching. I listen to that music, do the deep breathing. Again, those spiritual things we're going to talk about later. And I start to cry. I release all of that built up tension through the use of music. It's very important. And then again, that spiritual side. He said flags, right? So whether it's flags or symbolism, things like that. And then to structure, we look at numbers and logic, okay? So again, as you're planning these changes in your life, you're going to need structure. And it's good to write things down sometimes, right? Write down what you want to be, what you're going to be, and how you're going to get there. Sometimes you got to look at the end goal, write that down first, and then we cut it into little pieces. Take these little steps. How do we get to this end goal? What is the process? What is it going to be? For me, I didn't necessarily know what the end game is. I still don't. Again, this is part of a 7-year art project. We got just under 5 years to go here, folks, and we're making really good progress so far. I'm super excited how fast everything is going. But I really have no idea where all of this is going. I just know that I need to do the work. As you see in the first episode of the Mind War podcast, the very first thing that I do is thank Lucifer. That's right. When I was doing my spiritual work, I pulled the Lucifer tarot card. I listened to what he had to say to me, and that is why I started streaming. It was really about getting out there. That message that I received at that time was, you need to get out. You need to start streaming. You need to start doing more. You can't just hide behind these posts every 2 weeks on Instagram. There's more for you to share, right? That was, again, part of that spiritual work. I just listened. I listened to what was being told, and that is why I'm here today. But once I kind of understood, this is what we're doing, then I was able to say, that's a target. So now I started making some lists like, what the hell's a podcast and how do we do it? I'm a huge fan of podcasts. That's really the only type of medium I actually consume. Once in a while I watch, movies, maybe play video games and stuff like that. But the majority is through YouTube or through a podcast app. I'm just watching podcasts, folks. So once I knew that I was going to do that, again, started writing down, okay, here's what I got to do to actually get the podcast going. And again, still making huge changes, all these great changes from this season. So I'm really excited about that. Next page. Let's see. Tensergity. I'm not familiar with this word. It is Tensegrity. Tensegrity. Well, let's take a look. It says there's a picture of, it says the structure. We have rules and laws, and then the frontier of science. And then we have a line pointing outside of this structure, the circular structure, and far out in space we find the spirit. And there are all types of ideas about what the spirit may be that don't necessarily fall in with the rules and laws of the structure of our physical lives. One way of describing the process of enlightenment is popping out of the structure and into the spirit. If you can't travel freely into either set, then you're stuck in the cultural trance. Okay, that's very interesting, and that is going to play perfectly into next season, okay? Let me read it one more time. Okay, so one way of describing the process of enlightenment, that's part of healing the mind, body, and spirits, this process of enlightenment is popping out of the structure, that mainstream, as the author says here, that cultural trance that we've been in, simply following, here's what the culture and society dictates that we believe and think of. Once you start to see that in your life, folks, once you start to realize that there is this blanket that has been laid over your life, and a lot of us, it's multiple blankets, right? You have religion and politics, and then your family structure and your local community, how they deal with things. All of these things are kind of just, this is how it is. This is what we believe. And once you start to realize, wait a minute, I don't need all of these blankets. And you start pulling them off one layer at a time. It's very interesting. The author says here, you need to pop out of the structure. And that's what we're doing here. We're pulling that blanket back, and we're looking around maybe for the first time in our lives, getting a real look at the world and society and life and what it truly can be outside of these cultural norms. And if you can't travel freely into either set, then you're stuck in the cultural trance. And I'm telling you, folks, when we start working on the Gateway Experience in next season, we're going to break that cultural trance, okay? These first 2 seasons, if you've been here this far, if you're over there with me on Patreon, if you're looking at the Instagram and you're following along, okay, this is how we're breaking out of that trance. And when we get into the gateway experience, folks, I promise you, you are going to learn to travel outside of the cultural norms. Next page. So this page doesn't really have a title. Let's see. It's just got another circular image with some type of pointed structure inside. It says comfort zone, integrity, growth zone, tension, and new ideas. So when we come out of that structure, when we come out of our comfort zone, right, the first thing we have to have is integrity. What does the author mean by that? That means having integrity with yourself, not lying to yourself, being honest to yourself about those cultural norms, that cultural trance that you've been in. It's very difficult. You're going to have to look at things like maybe your political alignment, maybe your religious beliefs, things that you have felt, maybe have just started to spoil in your life a little bit, right? And it's so difficult to take a look at those things truthfully and say, they just are not serving me anymore. They're holding me back. I need to make a change. And you need to be honest and have that integrity with yourself first. And then the next part comes, okay? That's the emotional side of it. There's a very difficult emotional dealings with trying to strip away some of those cultural and societal norms that no longer serve us. Because the next part is where the tension happens. And I've talked about this before. When you start to see that you want to make changes in your life, don't be like your buddy Victor here, who kind of was really excited when all of this first started and tried to tell his friends and family about what was going on and what he was doing. But I honestly had no clue what I was going to do. I was exploring these things. They were very new to me. And those closest to me really had a hard time kind of accepting it. And a lot of them are still today. But a lot of it is that feigned concern, right? That feigned worry. Because I keep hearing these rumors that people are worried about me. But again, no one has contacted me. No one has talked to me directly. No one comes to visit. No one texts. I don't care. I'm not, complaining and saying I wish they would. But if you are going to talk shit about me behind my back to other people who are close to me, why don't you say it to my face? Call me, come visit, maybe come do some magic with me. Then we'll see how truly concerned you really are. So let's get back to it. The author says, we are internally programmed towards freedom, novelty, and variety. We therefore push all of our organizational structures to the limit. The process is a pushing and pulling sequence that yanks old systems out of their comfort zones. I mean, folks, if that doesn't describe the time that we are in right now, we have people who are in every direction. We are focusing towards that freedom, okay? And no matter what that means to you, a lot of people who, think of freedom and they say, oh, that's patriotic, that, that's just part of the structure. We don't want anything to do with that. You are looking for your own type of freedom. We're all looking for it. Novelty and variety. And that's where, we know that, right, folks? Throughout our media consumption, it's this constant change, this constant fluctuation, styles change, music changes. Ultimately, it's all still just the same. We'll learn that more in future seasons, right? But what we're doing is we're constantly pushing the structures to the limit. If that does not explain what is going on with the organizations, corporations, and institutions that run our lives right now, right? The ones that have polluted our minds, poisoned our bodies, and corrupted our souls, we are pushing them to the limit because we're sick of the shit that they have been trying to sell us. We're sick and tired of what they've been doing to us, and we are pushing them to the limit no matter what it is. And all of us can play a part of that. Find the organizations, corporations, and institutions in your life and push them to the limit, right? Push them until they start to crack. Only then will they either straighten their shit out and start to change for the better, or maybe they'll crumble and collapse under that pressure, and then new systems can be built, new paradigms. Next page. The intelligent universe. We have an interesting picture here. Hold on, folks. Sorry about that. Had to wet my whistle. It's, again, another late night of recording. I'm telling you, folks, last few weeks since I've had these big changes in my life, I have been exhausted, and the freedom that I have to kind of conduct my life on my own schedule now, I have literally been sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day. It is late here in the Mind War studios, so thank you for being here. This picture looks like a clamshell with some type of circle in the middle. It says, those who are missing the show altogether in their homes, helping with prayer, on the sidelines, cheering. The warrior monk is a player. Human systems theory, living systems theory, and general systems theory. When you look into the heavens, an intelligent system appears. The opportunity for boundless travel exists. When you look at our own biosphere, an intelligent system appears. The opportunity for boundless life and life forms exist. When you look at the human brain, an intelligent system appears. An opportunity for boundless growth exists. Wake up. Don't miss God's free handiwork. It's the most wondrous show around. Okay. So let's see here. The opportunity for boundless travel exists when we look to the heavens. Again, if we look towards some of the things we're going to learn in season 3 with the Gateway Experience tapes, one of those things is going to be astral travel. And that, in my opinion, from my experiences, you are traveling through the heavens, past the known physical universe, out into the darkness of the abyss. That is right. There is opportunity for boundless travel in our own biosphere. Again, the planet that we live on, when we talk about environmentalism, environmental work, okay, and there are boundless forms of life available to us, and we're seeing that through science right now, and it's an exciting time. I think we, for maybe the first time in human history, are going to start seeing some very exotic forms of life being created. It's going to be scary at first. There's going to be a lot of very conservative groups who are against these new life forms, but fuck them. They can rot in the past. We have to keep moving forward, right? And I don't mean to be so harsh. Of course, we need to maintain the reality of what life is and the creation that is today, the humans that we are today. It's important. We don't want to just end up like Neanderthals and all that, just, disappearing into the past. But, we also have to understand that new things are coming and we should embrace them. And then when it comes to the human mind, boundless opportunity for growth exists. And that's true. We've talked about it before. We are always growing. We are always learning. You can't stop that for the rest of your life. School is never over. The interesting part is once you get out of, a regular school that you're kind of forced to go to as a young person, once you get older and you find yourself out there just living life, you get to create your own school and start to learn the things that you want in it. And it's part of life. Accept it. You will be learning throughout the rest of your life. Next page. Growing people. Imagine that you must create a planet with conscious life in 9 steps. First, you chuck together matter of like resonance, position them in space using positive and negative fields, activate them in spinning circles so that the planets are tempered by warmth, air, and sea circulation. Next, seed in the conscious life in all colors and let it evolve to a tribal consciousness. Then insert spiritual masters into the tribes, augmented with some inspired master works. Since humankind is programmed to seek novelty and truth, the other ingredient needed is supervisory challenge. Events that jerk people from their cultural trance. Then subtle but tasty rewards are given for those who begin to work with the universe for its evolutionary refinement. That is very interesting, folks, when we talk about a supervisory challenge, which is an event that jerks people from their cultural trance. Again, we're talking about that cultural trance. So, in my lifetime, there's been two very serious, kind of events. We had 9/11 and the COVID lockdowns. Those were, in my life and in my opinion, two of the biggest kind of jerks in society, biggest jerk events that should have snapped people out of that cultural trance, but instead just dove so many of them deeper into it. And then I guess the third one, externally was maybe the housing meltdown in the 2000s. That didn't really affect me too much in a negative way. We'll say it that way. So it is important to think about when these events occur, and they will occur again in our lives, whatever they are, even if they're smaller than the ones that I just mentioned, right? When they do, are these things that are going to snap you out of your cultural trance, okay? And those are external events that would snap us out of that trance. If they haven't yet, but you're still here listening and you're still willing, that's where season 3 is going to come in. If you follow along with the Gateway Experience, if you actually participate in what we're going to start doing, you will experience personal events through learning the skills of hypnosis, out-of-body experience, and astral travel. You will experience life-altering events. Just understanding those things, when you for that very first time, feel your spirit leaving your body, it is very profound. A lot of questions arise, but a lot of answers and comfort come from it. It is an event that will jar you from those cultural trances. It will force you to realize that so many of those worthless things that you were worried about in the past no longer matter. And once you rip off all of those worthless blankets that were just holding you down, now you find freedom. Next page. Okay, so God is evolution. Again, we're not talking about God in any particular religion here. That's not what we're focused on. Yeah, I'm not a religious person. I'm not trying to push religion on you. But the author here is using the term God as, again, maybe the universe, some type of intelligence, some type of creator. God is and God becomes. Evolution is what's happening to the universe, and therefore evolution is God as a verb. Okay, so he's saying that God is responsible for evolution. Okay, evolution is our choice over stagnation or devulsion. Okay, we've talked about that before. Here in the Mind War, we are evolutionaries, not revolutionaries. We see revolutions going on all over the world today. We've seen them go on all throughout history. And those are people who are reacting to the bad situation that they're in. That is not how we work here in the Mind War. Once we find ourselves and we work through all the steps that we've already talked about, we get our aristos in place and we evolve out of those bad situations. We don't revolt against them. We don't spend our time looking behind us, burning the bridges, burning the structure that's behind. They will fall away in the end. But first and foremost, we must be evolutionary, okay? Evolution is God's promise to be and to become God. Ooh, I like the sound of that. Now we're talking. The matter, energy, information, and life forms that comprise the is are designed in such a way to cooperate with evolution. We are all one as God. We can be evolution, but you must choose. That's right, folks. We are all one. Okay, we've talked about that before. We are New World citizens. We are part of the New World Order. We are no longer just citizens of a country or state or a town. We are rejecting those old monikers because that is how those who are in power, that is how they control us through division. But we are no longer going to think that way. We are one people, one planet. This is some Captain Planet shit that I'm talking about. From those of you, 90s kids, listening to those Coke commercials, let the world be as one, all that nonsense back then, that all the people who were pushing it back then, who have since, just completely disregarded everything that they tried to teach us back then, well, guess what? It's ingrained in us because it was taught to us as children. You may be able to have just thought of it as a fad and you cast it off because you're just constantly groping for whatever the next variety of thing is, but we take it seriously. We are one people, one planet, and we are going to work towards peace whether you like it or not. Next page. Positive image. Let's see, fear of success, fear of failure. And then it says, God's in charge. And I'm pretty terrific myself. Okay. So, there are, very important things when we're talking about having the fear of success and the fear of failure. A lot of times we are afraid to make those changes in our lives because we're afraid that they're going to fail. And we've talked about this before. Do not announce to everyone in your life the changes that you're going to make. Start to make them first, okay? Behind the scenes, you are your own covert operator, all right? Work your own life covertly. You ultimately are the only person that you can trust. You are your own intelligence organization. You are your own military. You are your own, business organization. You have to focus on those things. You have to focus on yourself and making those changes first. Because what happens is if you go out and talk about all these changes that you're going to make before you make them, and then you start making them and they start to fail, then again, those people in your lives, they're going to use it as ammo against you. And they're going to say, oh, I thought you were going to do this. I thought you were going to do that. And look, you failed. And they're going to pull you back into their negative life. Because when you try to change, it is a threat to others who don't want to change. When you try to break your addictions and when you try to eat healthier and become healthier, when you try to gain knowledge, that is a threat to those who are still addicted to that type of lifestyle of slovenliness and greed and overconsumption and just want to be, addicted to whatever their addiction is. They are going to be threatened by those changes. So you do them covertly until they start to notice the changes in you. And then we start to propagandize them. Next page. Oh, sorry. Here, let's finish this off. Evidence abounds that people who think they're okay just turn out to be okay. Those who fear they may fail will be too conservative to take chances. And those who fear they might succeed and are unsure of what that means will never commit themselves totally. But those who realize they are pretty terrific and that God's in charge anyway can take off full steam to the top without a worry, okay? Again, you are all pretty terrific. You can all succeed in these changes, whether it's God or whatever thing that you believe in, whatever it is in charge. There are other things in charge of our lives if we kind of allow that to happen. And again, a lot of people look towards God, this external force, right? But we, through the mind war, the things that we're talking about here, we can start to, again, create that list of tactics, those things that we're going to do in our lives to succeed, right? And once you start to learn these tactics and learn these skills, they become like the God that changes you, okay? I don't mean for that to sound blasphemous or anything, but that's what it is, right? Again, if you chose a religion and you started reading it and you started following the commandments that come with that religion that were taught by the God of that book, then that is, it's through the rules that come from that book, the skills and tactics you learn from whatever religious book you're reading that represent this Godhead, this figure, right? And that's why you say, oh, I believe in God. But all you did was change things in your life, right? The same thing we've talked about, what is a demon? Demons are simply the spiritual representations of human nature. Some of the more difficult parts of human nature that we have to deal with, wrath and lustfulness, and again, greed and slovenliness, right? Those type of things. And again, through my spiritual work, it's about facing the demons instead of fearing them. We are trying to understand what they want, the balance that they want to bring into our lives. Then we take that type of stuff and we add it to the tactics that we're learning here. And again, that doesn't become our God. That's not what it is. It's more of intelligence. We kind of talked about earlier as a God being an intelligent being. We are learning new things. It's this knowledge that we are giving ourselves up to. We are trusting the knowledge that we're learning here on the Mind War podcast, that we're learning through books like Mind War, the First Earth Battalion, the 48 Laws of Power, and the books that we are going to work on in future seasons, right? So when we give ourselves up to that knowledge, when we give ourselves up to that, that's when those changes happen, and that's when we succeed. Next page. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code MINDWAR. The universal principles. Number 1, the universe works the way it's supposed to right now. That's it, folks. Everything that's going on in your life, everything that's going on in my life, everything that is going on in our lives is happening exactly the way it was supposed to, whether we like it or not. Okay? We have to accept that. Number 2, the universe has no axes to grind. Okay, that can, that's hard to believe sometimes. Sometimes it feels like the weight of the universe is on our shoulders and that it's doing everything it can to destroy us. But when we don't let it destroy us, when we don't give in to that pain and pressure, we grow. We've all heard that. We know that. Number 3, the universe sometimes works best when it's giving you a rough time. That's right. Sometimes those hardest situations is what molds us to be better. Number 4, the universe has biased humans towards freedom, novelty, and variety. And that's true. We, again, we've talked about it. We are geared towards freedom, no matter what type of freedom it is. You may want to have the freedom like I do. I'm not out and about. I spend the majority of my time here at home, here in the Mind War studios, right? I really don't go out a whole lot. And some people would say, oh man, that's not freedom. You're not. No, it is freedom. I want to be here. I want a quiet and calm place to live. I don't want to be out in the world of chaos anymore. I've done that, okay? So freedom for me is having the choice and the ability to just kind of stay here. Again, I joke, kind of being a hermit or whatever, but that's where I find freedom. Number 5 here, humans are and become just what they picture they are and become. So again, it's how we are focusing our thoughts. And I know we've heard this before in other places. And I know it sounds cheesy. I know it sounds ridiculous. But a lot of it is mindset. If we're constantly sitting there with those negative thoughts, that language we use towards ourselves, we're constantly calling ourselves a loser. We're constantly berating ourselves for the small mistakes that we make instead of looking at those incremental positive gains that we have in our life. That can be very difficult. We have to remember, growth is incremental, healing is incremental, success is incremental, one day at a time. Okay, and I promise if you keep working, you will succeed. There's going to be times where things look like they're going backwards. There's going to be difficult times. I face it all the time, right? I'm always running into things where I'm like, damn, should I have done that? That was a little wild. Maybe I should tone it down. And then, once those things, once that feeling starts to happen, then it just kind of cascades and you get more and more piled on. But you have to work through those things. And it's okay, because ultimately we're going to view ourselves being the very best that we can be, the best that we want to be. We can get there. Part of it is that visualization. Number 6, humans get what they need. I think that in some ways is true. Again, might be difficult to accept. And number 7, humans can become enlightened now or later. The universe has time. When it comes to enlightenment, one of the things that you're going to find, is once you start your journey, your hero's journey, your dark night of the soul, you're going to, again, like I did, I got very excited, and you want other people to experience it with you. It's, I think we see the same thing with Christians or anybody who maybe converts to a new religion. They get very excited. They want to proselytize everybody in the beginning. The difficult thing is most people are not going to become enlightened. Most people don't want it. They want to stay in that cultural trance. It's that comfort zone that we talked about. They don't want to feel the tension of change. They've given up on it. And that's very difficult, especially if it's people that are close to you. You want them to join you in this excitement in your life, but sometimes it's just not their time. They're not ready for it, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And lastly here, it says, since the universe pays off directly when you work for people and planet, we have no choice but to be wonderful. That's very true. You got to work. You got to work the system. We hear that all the time. No matter what the system is, you have to work it in order to succeed. Next page. Okay, chapter 7. We're moving right along here, folks. Resources. A good but small library is in order for the evolutionary professional. Here are just some of those powerful documents on the frontier. Others will be forthcoming in supplements to this manual. So again, I've talked a lot about on the Patreon. We're working from the 48 Laws of Power by author Robert Greene. He has so many wonderful books in his collection. That is a great place to start. The 33 Laws of Power, the power of seduction, I believe, right? I mean, these books are amazing. The things in those books are what I wish I would have learned as a child. They should be taught to young kids, right? Start them early about how to understand people and how to interact with them. So many things in my life, so many of the difficulties that I faced, I think would have came out very different. I would have succeeded in many different ways if I would have known the things that were in those books. And I think it's important to start your little library. Next page. Resources. Our past is not our potential. So one book here, it says The Aquarian Conspiracy. Now, we mentioned this at the beginning when we first started this season. The author had mentioned this book, The Aquarian Conspiracy by Marilyn Ferguson. I haven't looked that up yet, folks, but I will, and maybe we'll do a future season. There are many new and exciting resources to assist your team with your personal evolution. Some are written and some are packaged training. Depending on whether you have access to a large enough city or do any of the trainings, you can choose the written offerings instead. Many of the books must also be purchased in alternative bookstores in relatively large cities. For that reason, we have included a large number of works, many of which should be locally available. Hey, this book was written in the 80s, folks. Literally, if you wanted to find books like this, you had to go to underground bookstores. I mean, it was a whole different world a few decades ago to find information, and now a lot of it is at our fingertips. Unfortunately, some of it seems to be disappearing off of the internet. I'm telling you, folks, in the early 2000s on the internet, when I first, actually in the mid-90s is when I first got on the computer and logged into the internet for the first time, and then to have access to so many important systems in the early 2000s, the amount of information that was just available out there was really wild. I think it's still there. You just have to look for it. You have to find alternative routes to get to it, but I think it's still there. The trainings are only as effective as the particular trainers you draw. Nevertheless, the trainings have have a national reputation, generally worth of good quality. So another one here, it says, the Artania book and Course in Miracles can nicely support weekly discussions. Many of the rest of the books are best used for individual work. And so here we have a bibliography. The extensive bibliography I know is in the Book of Highs by Edward Rosenfield. Okay, so it looks like there is a long list of books here. This page should be up on the screen, so I'll let you look at those. Again, these are all books that we can address in future seasons of the Mind War. Maybe even if we just do synopsises on some of these, we'll just do quick overviews or something like that. But it looks like a lot of great reading here. We got The Future of Man, The Phenomena of Man, Language, Thought, and Reality. Let's see. The book on the taboo against knowing who you are. Journey, let's see, The Separate Reality, The Teachings of Don Juan. I think I may have actually read that one. The Masters, The Guide to Rational Fasting. A lot of interesting books there, folks. Next page. There are other needs, and there are plans for other alternative forces. They will include the old and the young. Oh, this page was titled Guided Mythology. So here we see all kinds of different levels that the author is talking about here. He's saying we should have the First Earth Battalion. We're here dealing with things like nuclear tension, the Natural Guard. Again, we've talked about that. Instead of the National Guard, we have the Natural Guard, where we deal with ecology and energy. The High Commandos, those who deal with crime and isolation. Interesting. The High Commandos, I like that. And then the can't really read what that was. I think it was like the word astronauts or something like that for space. Okay. But again, there are plans, whether they are huge, big plans, big organizations, corporations, and institutions that are out there that are putting these changes in play. I think we see those type of organizations all around the world today making change. Whether they're huge or not, and we know about them or not, they're still happening. And that's interesting. It's fun to watch. When you find one, learn about it. You don't necessarily need to join it or support it, but just learning about it, learning what they're doing, what their tactics are, and maybe you can start to apply those same tactics towards your life. If you do, let us all know. Share that information in the comments, right? Okay, so let's see. We're coming to the end here, folks. It says copyright, dear reader. This mini course is protected by copyright. Uh-oh. But in the case of peace, if there is someone who would benefit from it, copy it for them. Then, for the sake of all the others who will benefit from a second printing, we encourage a donation in the sum be sent to the formation. Thanks. So, wow, there is actually a address here. The First Earth Battalion Foundation, 114 6th Street, Stellacom, Washington, 98388. Again, when it comes to copyright, folks, of course, this is, we are talking about these books. We're learning from these books. This is for educational purposes. That's why we read through them. That's why we display them on the screen. I want all of you, we just talked about creating your library. I want all of you to go out and buy your copy of the First Earth Battalion. You can get these on Amazon. There's a link in the description page, okay? Next page. Let's see. Be nice to your mother. This looks like a message from Lieutenant Colonel Jim Shannon. Thank you, friends. This information has been collected by direct experience with the trainers or training materials created by over 150 New Age groups, futurists, psychotherapists, theologians, martial arts masters, and a wide array of practitioners of both Western and Eastern, ancient and modern, and orthodox and mystical, have generated these particular responses to the call for a new age for humankind. Special thanks is due to Marilyn Ferguson. Okay, and then he thanks a lot of people here. Delta Force, okay, the Pacific Institute. And that's great, friends. We have some journaling issues here. He talks about, there's a page here for a personal journal. Let's see what else we have left in the book here, folks. These final pages, see if there's anything worth looking at. First Earth Battalion cutouts. So it's kind of like a business card. If you wanted to make copies of that, that's kind of funny. I envision an internal idea of service awakening in an emerging class of people who are best called evolutionaries. That's right, folks. We are a new class of people. That is such a great way to think about it. I think one of the biggest forms of divisive warfare in our culture and society today is class warfare. I think all of the other things that they try to divide us along through religion and race and gender and sexuality, all that, I think they pale in comparison to class warfare, because it is ultimately those very top people, that class of people that are the untouchables, that, the millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires, right? They love the division between the rest of us. They love that class warfare, right? They think they hold all the keys. So maybe we need to become a new class of people, evolutionaries. We step outside of all of those other divisive mindsets, those divisive, the divisive warfare that is going on against all of us right now. They want us divided, folks. We've heard it a million times from a million different groups. Okay, they want us divided. Let's see, some evolutionary tactics, new approaches to personal development in harmony with planetary evolution. Okay, again, environmentalism. If you've been taught to hate it and think that that's a bad word, we need to move away from that, because as we evolve, we need to understand that we're evolving with our planet. The technology that works to create whole human beings, guidelines for the evolution of a planetary citizen, right? We've talked about that. We are New World citizens of the New World Order. We are not going to be afraid of words like the New World Order. We are going to separate ourselves from the Alex Joneses of the world who fear the New World Order and want to fight against it, okay? Instead, we are going to embrace it and shape it the way that we want it to be, Okay? Because the New World Order is coming whether we like it or not. We know that. We've been told that. But the question is that, can we participate in it? Or are you just going to stand outside of it and just say, oh, that's ugly, it's nasty, we're going to fight against it and try to destroy it? But you don't have anything to put in its place. What, some old paradigm? You want to go back to some ultra-religious, conservative lifestyle where the whole world or the country is ruled by some religious dictatorship? No, thank you. So until we start coming up with an alternative to either just some technocracy that strips us away of everything that means to be human, or some religious religious dictatorship that also strips us of our humanity and forces us to no longer believe the truths that are within us, right? We don't want either of those things. We're going to work towards a new world order of freedom. And that freedom is to choose what we want, okay? How to create your own team. Action for the local evolutionary unit. Again, we've talked about going out there, making friends, new family, okay? Building your little team locally and addressing issues in your local area. A new perspective on the use of force. Use of international TV satellite systems to influence the planetary collective conscious and world public opinion. Other alternatives to the arms race. I'm telling you folks, with the internet nowadays, one person, one camera, one microphone, that's all it takes. If you have a message that is worth listening to, if you have a message that is resonating with people, it doesn't take much to get your information out there now and spread it around the world. You don't need an international television station. If armies were no longer required, a look at the dream. When humanity works with nature, paradise appears. Again, we see armies all over the world today destroying things. Ultimately, they're going to rebuild them. We kind of understand that that's what the process of warfare is today, going into areas, destroying them, and then rebuilding them. It would be nice if we could work on the rebuilding and restoration of things without all the destruction. Again, we have a few more business cards to cut out. That's kind of cute. And a picture of the author. Not all people have the courage to take charge of themselves. But everyone has enough warrior and enough monk inside to become a powerful and yet sensitive evolutionary. This manual is designed to connect you with your own power to act. That's it, folks. That was it for the First Earth Battalion. This was a great book. This was a lot of fun. I hope you had a lot of fun this season. I mean, we learned so much together. Again, so many big changes here in the Mind War studios, so many big changes to the podcast. We're going to, take a little break here for a few weeks as I prepare for season 3. We're going to get ready for the Gateway experience, right? Again, on some of that personal level, for those of you that have stuck around this time, I appreciate you being here towards the end. So to kind of finish up that story where when I was at my job, my last job as a security guard at the local community center, the guy came in, pulled a knife on us. It took 3 hours for the cops to arrest him. I told my employer I cannot come back. Victor's life is too important to be sitting behind a broken down podium protecting people that, sometimes I think had a very negative view of me just because I was supposed to be some type of authority figure. It wasn't worth it, okay? And so it was very difficult for me to decide to make this change, okay? And I want to tell that story real quick because when I called my employer and told them that I wasn't interested in being a security guard and that I told them, I'm going to need about 2 weeks off. I got to recover from this. I'm exhausted already, and this just kind of pushed me over to the edge. There was a lot of things going on in my life at the time. And so when that happened, as I went through those next few weeks, the people that I worked for were nice enough to offer me another position, one that would have me going out into the community a little more. I wasn't really interested in that, Again, like I've said, I'm kind of a hermit, and going to work every day was something that was just exhausting to me, especially for the amount of money that I was making. It wasn't much, right? It was truly just, I kind of found that it just wasn't worth it. So I had been applying for some other jobs, and I hadn't actually secured any jobs yet, but now I found myself just a day away from this supposedly, starting this new job. The new schedule had been put in place, and I was told, hey, you can come back, right? And shortly before that, I just wrote the email because I was having such bad anxiety. That's right, folks. Mid-40s, still having anxiety about starting a new job. My stomach was in knots. I couldn't sleep. I was like, I do not want to do this. And it's just amazing to, as an adult, throughout my adult life, I've never really listened to my gut. I've always kind of pushed through and said, I have to do this. And in the past, I kind of did in order to, get that job, to pay for the house and this, that, and the other, all the things that we are told to do, right? You have to push through some of those. And I never really trusted my gut. I just kind of did the things that I thought I had to do. And so this was the first time I really said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. And it was very difficult to jump off that diving board. But I wrote the email and I said, listen, I'm just not coming back. I don't want to do this job. And literally within just a few days, a new job offer was given to me, one that was kind of a shot in the dark. I had no idea if it was going to work out or not. I'm still in the very early stages of it. I've only done a few days' work, but it's been amazing, right? I'm able to work from home now. I'm making much more money than I was in my last job. It's still not very much, folks. Don't get me wrong, okay? But it is, what it's doing is allowing me to make basically the same amount of money, but putting in less time, right? Because I don't have to spend all the time getting ready for work and then going to work and all that. And again, because I was making less per hour at the other job, now I can spend more time so far sleeping, resting, and recovering from about 30 years of minimal sleep and just running and gunning. So it's been very nice. I feel so much better already just after a few weeks of trusting myself and getting out of that scheduled structure of work, right? Being able to have my own schedule, because again, this work I can do, from home whenever I'm ready to do it. And that has been very, very interesting. It's definitely changed the way that my life is organized now, and it's amazing. So it's very important to trust your gut, okay? And if you find yourself in a situation where you're up against something like this, right, and you need somebody to talk to, please reach out. If you're at this kind of crossroads of trusting your gut or just kind of going with what you think, reach out, whether it's to me or your friends, family, other people, right? Because when you do trust your gut, just from personal experience, it's actually worked out really well. And it's pretty amazing. And I'm very thankful for that, right? And really, folks, I'm thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for all of you being here on the Mind War podcast. I'm thankful for those of you who are over on the Mind War Patreon. Don't forget to find me on Instagram. Hopefully, a lot of you have probably come over from Instagram. That's where my art is. You can see all kinds of fun stuff there. I personally think the art's getting better. It's still, it's still amateur at best, but I'm getting better every day. And again, I appreciate all of you being here. I really look forward to season 3 in Mind War, where we go through the Gateway experience. And as always, folks, remember, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.